Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to completely flip how you think about financial success. If you just look around, our culture presents a really loud, highly specific illusion of wealth. You know exactly what I mean. It's the flashy cars, the luxury vacations, plastered all over social media, the endless upgrades. But when we actually dig into the data and look at the real habits of highly successful people, a totally different picture emerges. We're going to break down the thematic blueprint of quiet wealth. These are the seemingly boring, invisible decisions that are actually building permanent financial freedom right under the surface.
We all know this exact contrast, right? Think about that one coworker by the coffee machine who is constantly stressed and always complaining about being broke, yet they're often the exact same person who just leased a brand new SUV, flies out to Vegas every other month, and gets DoorDash 4 days a week. Their visible lifestyle is literally consuming their actual wealth. On the flip side, you have the quiet wealth builder. This is the person who wakes up, neutrally checks 3 numbers on their banking app in the dark, automates their savings, and drives a perfectly reliable 5-year-old car. This person often feels like they're falling behind because their life doesn't look like an Instagram feed. But in reality, they are silently securing their entire future.
And honestly, the numbers perfectly illustrate exactly why those quiet habits are so incredibly powerful. If you ever feel like you're not doing anything special, just consider these national averages. 47% of Americans have absolutely no budget. 24% have zero emergency savings, and the personal savings rate, it sits at a shockingly low 4.4%. So if you're deliberately directing your money and keeping panic at bay, you are not behind. You are actually leagues ahead of the vast majority of the population.
Section 1. The Quiet Wealth Builder, the Foundation of Wealth.
Look at this massive gap between what we think we spend and what we actually spend. The average person assumes they spend about $86 a month on subscriptions. The reality? It's closer to $219. That is a $133 gap of pure, unmonitored bleeding every single month. The Quiet Wealth Builder completely breaks this psychological cycle of avoidance. They don't hide from their numbers out of anxiety. Instead, they observe them neutrally and regularly. By simply knowing exactly what you're paying for, you close that gap and snatch the steering wheel right back from companies that are banking on your inattention.
Moving on to Section 2. Automating Decisions, Removing Willpower.
The real game changer here is understanding the fundamental difference between intention and structure. The intention crowd relies purely on hope. They wait until the end of the month, look at whatever's left over, and try to drum up the willpower to save it. But let's be real, willpower fluctuates with stress, sleep, and just everyday life. The structural crowd, our quiet wealth builders, they don't rely on being highly disciplined every single day. They build a system once. They have their savings transfer automatically on payday before the money is even seen. Future you gets paid before present you can even make an emotional decision.
Just think about the math of what that structure actually builds. $500 a month, automated and invested at an 8% return over 30 years, grows to roughly $750,000. Double that to $1,000 a month, and you're looking at nearly $1.5 million. You don't have to remember to do this. You don't have to agonize over the decision each month. Automation does all the heavy lifting, executing indefinitely in the background for your tired brain.
All right, Section 3. Resisting Inflation, Keeping Costs Low.
These 4 signs, they're basically your ultimate defense mechanism against the visible wealth trap. The Quiet Wealth Builder drives a 5-plus-year-old car because they know perfectly well that cars are depreciating assets, not status symbols. They actively ignore those friendly little bank pop-ups asking to update their income, knowing from a purely analytical standpoint that institutions just use that fresh data to market new debt or to optimize pricing models against them. They deliberately buy less house than they're approved for, and as a result, their life looks, well, plain compared to their actual income. They're intentionally understating their financial position.
And if you need validation for those choices, here is a truly jarring statistic. Right now, the median household spends close to 48% of their income just to own a median-priced home. Almost half of every dollar earned is vanishing into a single line item. When you choose the smaller house or stick with the reliable older car, you are performing the ultimate act of financial self-defense. You are giving yourself the kind of breathing room that almost no one else has.
Let's bring this down to earth with an example. Meet Janelle. She's 34, making $78,000 a year. Her colleagues, who make the exact same salary, drive newer cars and live in luxury apartments, but they are mostly just 2 paychecks away from a total crisis. Meanwhile, Janelle drives a 6-year-old Civic and lives in a modest 1-bedroom apartment. Because of those specific choices, she has 0 credit card debt, over $140,000 invested, and 11 months of living expenses sitting in cash. Her life looks completely ordinary on the outside, but she is an absolute powerhouse of quiet compounding.
Section 4. The mathematics of wealth. Shifting your view.
Think about the little psychological trick we all play on ourselves. Most people anchor their ego right to their gross income. They think, I make $100,000. And then they spend as if that entire amount is theirs to use. But it's not. After taxes, insurance, retirement contributions, and just the fixed costs of being alive, your free cash flow, the actual real discretionary money, is vastly smaller. If you base your purchases on your gross income, you are going to be stuck on the lifestyle treadmill forever. The quiet wealth builder only ever makes decisions based on their smaller, strictly honest, free cash flow.
So this mindset becomes incredibly critical when your income goes up. Here's the exact framework to sidestep the trap of lifestyle inflation. Step 1, you get a $5,000 raise. Step 2, you keep your lifestyle exactly the same as it was yesterday. And step 3, you immediately bank that entire $5,000 difference straight into your wealth building accounts. When you do this, every single promotion widens the gap between what you earn and what you spend. And that gap is the only place where true wealth is actually manufactured. You know, we spend so much time agonizing over picking the perfect investments, but just look at how these numbers play out. The return rate is completely outside of your control, but your savings rate is 100% yours. On a $75,000 income, a 5% savings rate yields about $460,000 over 30 years. But if you optimize your savings rate to 25%, you end up with $2.3 million. The investment return was identical in both scenarios. Optimizing the lever you actually control, your savings rate, is vastly superior to chasing returns.
Section 5. Buying the power of no, the ultimate freedom.
That's not in my budget right now. The quiet wealth builder can drop this simple sentence without a hint of embarrassment, without over-explaining, and without apologizing. When you stop auditioning for other people's approval, an immense peace just washes over you. You don't have to go into debt to match the spending of friends who might earn twice what you do. You've simply decided that protecting your future is way more important than protecting a temporary image.
Which brings us to a massive reframe. Real wealth is absolutely not measured by the visible markers of accumulation. It's not the cars, the watches, or the giant house. Real wealth is the freedom of refusal. It's simply the number of situations in your life where you can comfortably afford to say no without facing any immediate, devastating financial consequences.
Think back to Janelle's 11 months of emergency cash. That isn't just a safety net. That is literally no money. All those years of quiet restraint, driving the older car, skipping the fancy subscriptions, that restraint has actively purchased her the ability to say no. No to the toxic boss she can't stand. No to the $3,000 destination wedding she doesn't even want to attend. No to entering an absurdly overpriced housing market. The person living paycheck to paycheck has almost zero no's available to them. They're forced to accept whatever conditions life hands them. Quiet wealth buys you the freedom to just walk away.
Finally, Section 6. Mapping your future. Anticipate the traps. The smartest financial minds out there don't just react to traps when they step in them. They study the map of life stages long before they arrive. In your 20s, the irreversible windows are often credit card and subscription traps. By your 30s, the pressure really mounts for that massive new car payment. Hitting your 40s, society totally expects you to stretch for a massive house upgrade. And progressing into your 50s, a highly inflated lifestyle just starts to feel normal. These mistakes don't happen because people are foolish. They happen because people just don't see the trap until they are already inside it. And by then, the financial obligations are totally locked in.
So that leaves us with one final question to ask yourself today. Will you study the map before you encounter the hidden traps of your next decade? The 12 signs of quiet wealth we've explored today aren't just a basic checklist. They're a completely different way of walking through life. By seeing these pitfalls in advance, automating your behavior, and valuing true freedom over status, you ensure that you aren't just surviving the map, you are quietly mastering it. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to start looking at your own numbers with that quiet, powerful confidence today.